Pokemon can complete feats of power well beyond anything a human could ever dream of. From simply generating limitless energy to creating black holes, or even forming entire universes with a swipe of a hand. They are incredibly powerful beings. But there's a problem. We have Pokemon measured through something called base stat totals. General stats that love to make us think that the fat cat Purugly is faster than Pokemon such as Tornadus, who can create Category 5 tornadoes, Latios and Latias, who fly faster than jets, or even Rayquaza. You know, the Pokemon that is fast enough to break through the Earth's gravity with no effort. So I'm tired of not knowing what Pokemon is truly the fastest of all, and I've decided to figure out once and for all who is truly the fastest Pokemon. Hi there, I'm Purugly, and let's set down some ground rules. I am not using base stat totals at all. I want directly stated speeds. If a speed is not stated by the Pokédex, anime, side games, or any other official source, then it is not being considered here. The reason for this is because this gives us definitive speeds instead of playing the guessing game, or trying to measure things inside of the anime, or assuming that Bulbasaur is only as fast as a normal frog, which can make things super complicated and arbitrary. This also makes it so that way Pokemon that have definitive abilities or feats of speed stand out a lot more and can be measured and organized. In addition, we are assuming they are all in their preferred environments and simply looking for the fastest overall in their best scenario. So with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the section I call basic speeds because, yeah, I mean, they aren't very impressive in terms of Pokemon speed and may not be all that definitive, but we have measurements for them. And it's a short section. Bumblebee's hand-like ears are strong enough to shovel dirt and chop tree roots. It can dig a nest up to 33 feet in just one night. 33 feet over the course of 8 hours means it digs at a pace of 4.125 miles per hour, which is pretty slow, but hey, digging isn't actually the same as tunneling speed, so we cut it a little bit of slack, which, you know, again, it's not traveling speed. Meanwhile, as we move on to Alolan Sandslash, despite the weight of its ice-covered body, Alolan Sandslash can move swiftly by carving a path in the snow with its claws. It can move faster than any other Pokemon while in the snowy mountains. This is another arbitrary one, but I didn't want to ignore it as it at least gets the honorary mention, and, I mean, it could just roll into a ball and just zoom after all. Land vehicles. Now we have actual measurements in this section, and we have Pokemon that can move up to the speed of a sports car. Starting with Poliwrath. It is a strong swimmer. It is faster than a human champ in an individual medley. It can go far and fast with minimal breathing, and we can break that down. We're going to assume that it would still beat the modern-day champion. This places it faster than France's Leon Marchand, who swam a 400-meter individual medley in the 2023 Olympics at a total time of 4 minutes, 2 seconds, 50 milliseconds. That means that he swam nearly a quarter of a mile in that time, which we can divide an hour by that time, and we get 14.876 as a result, which can be multiplied by 400 meters to get the total meters completed in an hour, being roughly 5.95 kilometers per hour or 3.69 miles per hour. Fun, but not as impressive as it sounds regarding our Pokemon. Golden. It can be seen swimming upstream in large schools during the breeding season in spring. Its strong fins allow it to maintain a steady speed of 5 knots while swimming upstream. That would be translated to 5.75 miles per hour or 9.25 kilometers an hour. They're all still pretty slow. Now, I will at least admit this probably means that for the most part, a lot of their evolutions are going to be a little bit faster than their pre-evolved forms, so we could assume things such as Seaking being faster than Goldeen. Dugong. Even in extremely cold and ice-packed waters, its tail allows it to be a swift and agile swimmer at speeds of 8 knots. On top of its head is a sharp horn which allows it to cut through the thickest ice floes. 8 knots, 9.2 miles per hour, 14.8 kilometers an hour. Now, here's the next one that's actually going to require a little bit more thought. Magikarp can jump 8 feet. It can jump over mountains. It can jump into space. So what speeds do we at least need to jump 8 feet? Because that is the natural height that it will typically jump. Unless you're in Unova, which I think it says it only jumps no higher than 7 feet. So I'm going to try and spare you the math stuff because I don't want to bore you to sleep, but I'm at least still going to tell you the equation I use for, which is just the equation for vertical jump height. Height equals initial velocity squared times 2 times the acceleration due to gravity. Fantastic. Rearrange it to solve for initial velocity, and we can use a new formula for any Pokemon that only states their jumping height, as long as we convert everything to meters before plugging it into the equation. In this case, Magikarp would have initial velocity of 6.91 meters per second, or roughly 24.88 kilometers an hour, which is 15.46 miles per hour. We are finally starting to reach that point that is faster than humans can actually achieve. This also is in ideal conditions and does not account for wind speed or proper sizing, but it gives a good general idea. Now, that's not very impressive without the extra training, but it's not unheard of. After all, have you seen how high rabbits will jump? They will go from perfectly still to jumping like 10 feet into the air when they're scared. I've seen it happen, and it's a little bit funny because you might be no threat whatsoever, standing easily 20 feet away, but they just freak out and popcorn way up into the air. Carkol can move faster than 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers an hour, and can breathe flames hotter than 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, 1000 degrees Celsius. When it experiences strong emotions, the temperature inside its body increases. 18 miles per hour, nice and easy, and Carkol is basically just a minecart after all. Oinkologne, well-developed leg muscles allow it to leap to a height of over 16 feet. Calculator time, and it gets us to 35.19 kilometers an hour, or 21.86 miles per hour. Again, this isn't really traveling distance because that's not it running, but it gives us a good speed at to which it can jump at least. So this is me in the future after uploading the original video of, well, this as through the help of one of our audience members or one of our community members, Plow, who actually I need to give credit for, because while I was talking about doing this video, they actually helped me find all of the information faster through a technical method. Then, after I uploaded this video, we didn't compare results, which is on me completely, and there are a number of Pokemon that I missed, so I had to re-upload this video. As such, anytime you see me with the purple shirt, you can immediately attribute the credit to Plow. Thank you very much. The first up is actually Archeops, which has to run at a speed of about 25 miles per hour over the course of 2.5 miles before it can even fly. Poplio flat out states it can swim at 25 miles per hour or 40 kilometers an hour, so we can move on to Kilowattrel, which can fly over 430 miles or 700 kilometers within a single day by riding the wind. However, it cannot swim very well in water due to a lack of oil in its feathers. So we're going to assume that it sleeps for 8 hours. And so we divide the distance by 16 hours, and we get 26.875 miles per hour, or 43.75 kilometers per hour. So basically your average residential speed for the most part. Very unimpressive when we break it down that far, but sometimes it's about overall distance and the endurance through it, not the speed at which animals will move. Nimble. When threatened, Nimble can jump to a height of over 30 feet or 10 meters. Its jumping capabilities allow it to dodge attacks while dealing damage, which 30 feet is actually 9.144 meters. Thank you, Pokemon, as I punch that into my equation, and I get 48.19 kilometers an hour, or 29.94 miles per hour, for all you people who like to go 5 over the speed limit. Mega Pinsir. When it Mega Evolves, Pinsir is left in a constant state of excitement. It rarely touches the ground due to its ability to now fly. Mega Pinsir can travel up to approximately 30 miles per hour or 50 kilometers an hour, and uses its 2 horns to pierce its enemies before shredding them. Mega Pinsir can lift opponents up to 10 times heavier than itself with its horns and still fly around easily. What that probably means is that it's not struggling to fly. It's not going to go faster than 30 miles per hour like we'll see with other Pokemon that pick up something and still travel at a consistent pace. This just means that it can still fly easily. Maybe it's going 15 miles per hour. That's still very fast while carrying somebody. Heck, even 5.2 miles per hour is really fast while carrying somebody, especially on your head like that. Oh my gosh, good thing it doesn't have a neck. Toadscool is up next, as it has 2 long, thin, white legs resembling tentacles or mycelium, which it uses to run at a speed of 30 miles per hour, 50 kilometers an hour, and it lives in humid forests where it clings to tree roots. Done. Drover can straighten its body and align its claws forward, allowing it to spin like a drill and dig through the ground. It can dig at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, 50 kilometers an hour. This is just the same thing over and over again, but it gives us a good base idea. And a Drillbur is fast enough to make a running car race with it, which is just a way, as some of my audience has stated, to make it so that way children can understand just how fast Drillbur is going. The average speed of a car in the residential area. Kabutops got those big old scythe arms. In its ocean home, Kabutops could tuck up its limbs to help it swim extremely fast, up to roughly 29 knots, which can be converted to roughly 33.4 miles per hour. In other words, if you're in the water, you are not escaping it. There's 0% chance. Here's one that makes me angry. Okay, Railu. Its body is lithe yet powerful. It can crest 3 mountains and cross 2 canyons in one night. I hate Railu for this. You, by far, have the most indirect travel distance feat. So, let's take averages. The average mountain height already depends on the definition of a mountain, as a mountain and hill could be crossed between in terms of what they are. So, we're gonna go with the common general agreement that if they're 1,000 feet or 300 meters above their surroundings, that is what a mountain would be. Then, for canyons, let's give it the benefit of the doubt, and with the Grand Canyon in the US, we get an average depth of 5,200 feet or 1,600 meters. This means that Railu is going all the way up and then all the way down these two areas. But guess what? That is the height and the depth, not actual distance that it crosses. It's that third part of the triangle, baby. Now, it isn't going to be 100% accurate, as we're making a lot of assumptions about the angles of the mountain and the canyon, but whatever, bear with me, please, as I skip over the funny math to bring you the actual answer that drove me insane to get to. I need to also include half of the total distance directly across the canyon, being an average of 10 miles or 16 kilometers rim to rim, or the width of the mountain, which is kind of weird to think about the actual width of the base of the mountain. The range of that did vary between 70 to 300 miles, so I just took the 115 as that was the flat out middle number. So skipping all the boring math from there, that means that Railu travels 231.75 miles in mountain terrain. Mind you, walking up Mount Everest is 42.7 miles one way. I found this out when I wanted to double check my information using Mount Everest going up one side, and it made me feel incredibly stupid because it was so close to my calculation I could have just used it. But it's too late to go back now, and now you have to suffer with me. Then we add in our canyon crossing, giving us 40.19 miles for a grand total of 271.94 miles. Divide that by 8 and we get 33.99 miles per hour. That's it. Yeah, I do all of that work and all I got was 33.99 miles per hour. It's okay. I'm not upset at all at Railu. I'm gonna call my Railu miles from now on, just as a reference to all this because of the pain that this has done to me. When Doduo evolves into this odd breed, Dodrio, one of its heads splits into 2. It runs at nearly 40 miles per hour. Along with its 3 heads, it has 3 sets of hearts and lungs as well. This allows it to efficiently oxygenate and pump blood throughout its body, thus giving it increased endurance to run vast distances without rest. It is prone to race vigorously across grassy plains, even in arid seasons with little rainfall. As a result, despite being slower than Doduo, Dodrio can keep running for an even longer time. So again, nearly 40 miles per hour. In addition, the whole idea of running a longer distance through endurance is actually incredibly useful, as that is how humans have grown to evolve. That's why we have a gluteus maximus, after all. It allows us to not outrun in speed, but outrun in endurance a lot of creatures. Dracovish is said to have been the apex predator of its time due to its powerful legs and jaws, and the ability to run at speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour or 60 kilometers an hour. However, it could not breathe unless it was underwater. Dracovish allegedly went extinct due to overhunting its prey, though this is likely not the case due to being combined from 2 separate Pokemon that each had their niches before going extinct. And, as seen in Pokemon Journeys, the series episode On Land, in the Sea, and Into the Future, Dracovish can run very fast when underwater. This is just a cursed Pokemon that I love so much, but is just living a life of pain. It can run fast on land, but it can't breathe. Heliolisk can dash 100 yards in 5 seconds, putting it just under 41 miles per hour. Empoleon can swim about as fast as a jet boat. The average speed of a jet boat is somewhere around 40 to 50 miles per hour. Boltund can channel the electricity that it generates to its hind legs in order to keep them strong, boosting its strength and allowing it to run non-stop for 3 full days. That's a long time. It can easily run faster than 50 miles per hour at top speed, so sure, I could place it higher than this, but it does say 50 miles per hour. Without giving us any other ideas or measurements, this is where Boltund stays, with keeping that in mind. Onyx tunnels under the ground at over 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers an hour, which causes tremors and a terrifying roar that echoes a long way. Hard objects encountered while tunneling are absorbed into its body, which makes it very sturdy. That is actually incredibly important in terms of distinctions, because that means it's not being slowed down by any sort of other object as it moves. Kind of completely gets rid of the idea of resistance then. It's just zooming. Swampert boasts the physical strength to easily drag an enormous boulder weighing more than a ton, batter down opponents, and swim faster than a jet ski. It can even tow a large ship while swimming. Now, it doesn't say how fast it's towing that ship, but the average jet ski is between 50 to 55 miles per hour. Palafin Hero Form. Once it changes into its hero form, Palafin reaches its full power, being strong enough to lift a cruise ship with just one fin and swim at speeds of 50 knots. So this feels a little bit unfair considering that it can lift the cruise ship and swim 50 knots still, but there's so much variation that could happen at this point, as cruise ships can weigh between tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of tons. Plus, Palafin just gets stronger with the more cheers that it gets, so I'm just gonna leave the funny dolphin here with the speed of 57.53 miles per hour, or 92.6 kilometers an hour. Doduo directly states that it runs at 60 miles per hour, and while we're at it, so does Lanoon. Whirlipede remains motionless while storing energy for evolution, but will move to stab approaching predators with its poisonous spikes. If attacked, it can quickly spin its body like a wheel and crash furiously into opponents. It can move to about the speed of 60 miles per hour. So we're kind of reaching higher ends of just your average vehicle use. Maybe you're going onto a highway. And, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Whirlipede is kind of a wheel after all. Dugtrio's 3 heads think the same thoughts and act cooperatively, though on rare occasions they may fight over which head gets to eat first. In order to make burrowing easier, each head will bob up and down to loosen the soil. Dugtrio can tunnel under the earth at 60 miles per hour or 100 kilometers an hour to a depth of 60 miles or 100 kilometers, triggering tremors and earthquakes. It is capable of burrowing endlessly. Now, it's kind of weird that after an hour of digging, it's already like, nah, I'm turning back around. Meanwhile, a lot of other creatures might go deeper or go further, especially considering there's so many other Pokemon that can dig so deep. Graveler's preferred locomotion is rolling, specifically because it is a slow walker. It often rolls down mountain paths at speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour, crushing objects in the way and stopping by running into huge rocks should it build up too much speed. However, it will explode if it rolls into a river instead. They are generally known to be very free and uncaring, not minding if pieces of itself break off, as it can restore itself over time by just eating other rocks. I will have to note it is really funny because they are likely similar to pure salts, which if made contact with water just goes boom. Like, I was in science classes, and by being around it, it had to be in an oil jar, like a special oil jar. Otherwise, just the humidity could cause it to just flare up. For Metang, in addition to generating psychic power, its magnetism allows Metang to hover in mid-air. It is able to rotate its arms backwards in order to travel at speeds over 60 miles per hour, 100 kilometers an hour, in search of prey. So it's just windmilling the whole time in order to push the air around and push itself forward. 10% formed Zygarde is created when a Zygarde core combines with only a tenth of the total Zygarde cells, forming our dog that is good at close-range combat. It is also capable of running at speeds greater than 60 miles per hour, 100 kilometers an hour. Shadow Rider Calyrex, specifically. When fused with Spectrier, it becomes swift to the point that it can run 1,000 miles within a single day. 16 hours is what we're considering the day, so that brings us to 62.5 miles per hour, 100.58 kilometers an hour. We have the Big Claw and Clawitzer, as its massive claw can suck up water and launch it as compressed cannonballs capable of piercing tanker hulls. But by using the gases inside its body, water can be expelled from the nozzle on its back instead, which allows it to travel at speeds of up to 60 knots, setting it at 69 miles per hour, nice, or 111 kilometers an hour. I can only imagine the number of accidents that would occur as this Pokemon launches itself away and slams into somebody that is swimming. Cyclizar. When carrying a human, Cyclizar can reach a speed of over 70 miles per hour, 120 kilometers an hour. Cyclizar maintains its balance and absorbs shock while running by using its hard head and thick yet supple tail. And as a special little fun fact, Cyclizar and humans have been cooperating for since ancient times, because 1, humans get to go far fast, saving energy, and Cyclizar gets a fun little blanket to keep it warm by having the human on them. Sharpedo swallows and shoots out jets of seawater from its rear, which allows it to swim 75 to 80 miles per hour. However, it is unable to swim long distances. It uses butt water to go zoom zoom. Excadrill. Due to its evolution, Excadrill's drill has turned into steel. It can straighten its entire body, allowing it to spin like a drill, and can cut through iron and steel plating, and dig at speeds of over 90 miles per hour, 150 kilometers an hour. They are known as the Drill King, using excellent digging abilities to build a complex network of tunnels for its nest at more than 300 feet or 100 meters below the surface. So once again, we're reaching speeds that are above what you would normally go at, even if you're on the highway, as Cyclizar had hit the 70 mile per hour or 120 kilometer an hour mark for the highways. Meanwhile, Excadrill is exceeding that. Mantine thrives in open seas where it swims freely, often in schools where they race one another. It can breach out of the water and fly 300 feet, 100 meters into the air if it builds up enough speed. Punch it into the calculator again, and we get a total of 152.39 kilometers an hour, or 94.69 miles per hour as a minimum speed it needs to reach that 300-foot height, technically ignoring water breaching physics, so maybe it has to go a little faster. Here's a fun one. Here's a really fun one, as Beware, depicted in Pokemon the series Sun and Moon, is highly intelligent and capable of performing remarkable feats. Some of these feats are running fast on the ocean, building tools such as a wooden motorcycle, jumping very high into the air, and despite its size, it can move very fast. It is very protective of its cub, Stuffle, and also likes to eat honey made by Combi and berries. So, it can run across water. How do we figure that one out? We start by getting a standard that we can compare it to, and according to Medium.com, Italian researchers figured out how a 5'7", 65 kilogram human could run on water just like that running lizard, the Jesus lizard as they like to call it. To run on water, the human's legs would have to press down against the water at more than 108 kilometers an hour or 67 miles per hour, which the researchers explain is 15 times the force our legs are capable of producing. But that isn't impossible for Beware. It is incredibly strong after all, but this is not the speed of our Beware. After all, Beware weighs 135.0 kilograms, over double the weight of that theorized human. Similar results are given in the BBC's Science Focus, where Len Fisher states a running speed of 80 kilometers an hour would be needed as the water moves back as you push it, meaning that in order to move forward, you need to actually exert twice the strength, or rather, move twice as fast, otherwise you are going to stand still. And we can't exactly run the numbers because I couldn't find an actual calculator or their conversions or whatever they did, so it gets a little difficult, and you can't technically get an accurate one-to-one conversion, I assume, as this is something that has way too many factors that go into it. but we can at least get a minimum estimation using the 1-to-1 ratio and the science direct speed. And we say the absolute minimum necessary speed for Beware to run across water would be 166 kilometers an hour or 103 miles per hour. And that is on the water. That is not saying it's land speed. That is just the minimum it needs, and it's likely exceeding that. Originally, I did want to include other water runners like Suicune and Keldeo, but unfortunately, for my heart and soul, they cheat. They could just walk on the water because they have special abilities and don't require speed in order to do so. Meanwhile, Mega Mewtwo X can sprint 100 meters in 2 seconds, putting it just a bit under 112 miles per hour. Barraskewda's jaws are said to be as sharp as a spear and strong like steel. It propels itself up to speeds of 100 knots by spinning its tail, and uses that speed to ram into its prey, spearing it. It is able to leap out of the water and catch Wingull flying near the surface with its jaws. That takes us to 115 miles per hour and 185 kilometers an hour. Espathra's legs are long and powerful, allowing it to run at speeds of over 120 miles per hour, 200 kilometers an hour, and it makes its habitat in deserts and mountainous regions. Drycloak is capable of flying at speeds greater than 120 miles per hour or 200 kilometers an hour. It carries a Dreepy on its head, which it takes care of and fights alongside until the Dreepy manages to evolve. So the little Dreepy gets a little joyride as air is just making its face go backwards, because why not? Swanna is known to fly for thousands of miles without rest, and it flies out when the sun rises. At dusk, flocks of Swanna will dance with the leader in the middle of the routine. I'll be kind of fair and say that thousands, quote-unquote, of miles is just going to be 2,000 miles, which I feel is fair. This means in a 16-hour period, it flies at an average speed of 125 miles per hour. Mega Sharpedo with explosive propulsion can exceed 125 miles per hour in an instant. Rapidash is a very agile Pokemon. It runs at about 150 miles per hour or 240 kilometers an hour, chasing everything that moves in hopes of racing it, which is adorable. With incredible acceleration, it reaches its top speed in only 10 seconds. At full gallop, its hooves barely touch the ground. The faster Rapidash goes, the longer the swaying flames of its mane will become. At an all-out gallop, its blazing mane sparkles, a feature that is said to enhance its beautiful appearance, and it is capable of traveling an entire region like Hisui within a day and a half. That would mean that Hisui's like 5,400 miles wide, which is, I mean, sure, why not? When Blaziken Mega evolves into Mega Blaziken, it further hones the power of its kicks, always a source of pride to it. As it unleashes a flurry of savage kicks, its legs can begin to burn from the friction of the surrounding atmosphere. According to the Mega Evolution Pokédex short, as Mega Blaziken's body temperature increases, its power and speed continue to ramp up. So this one's incredibly difficult as there is no singular speed to move that can cause wind burn. In addition, wind burn will often happen when you are exposed to long-term wind resistance, especially if it is colder than your body. And with Mega Blaziken being such a fiery Pokemon, it makes it a lot more difficult to figure out, you know, what the speed it could be moving here, even though it has these feathers to help ensure it can fight against that wind resistance, being more aerodynamic. So there are even more factors that go into it, way more than we can properly calculate here, and this becomes very arbitrary, as replacing Mega Blaziken would be incredibly difficult, but I feel like it's best fit here, and it is still moving slower than the speed of sound, at least. Galarian Zapdos is belligerent by nature and ever thirsting for battle. Galarian Zapdos seeks out opponents stronger than itself so it could test its might. Its powerful legs allow it to perform devastating kicks capable of destroying a dump truck. And it can run across mountains at up to 180 miles per hour or 300 kilometers an hour. Its wings have atrophied to the point that it can barely fly, but its movements are so swift that they have been compared to a lightning strike. Skarmory has red feathers under the sheets that cover its sharp wings, and each feather can be moved independently. Its wings are actually hollow, allowing it to travel up to 185 miles per hour or 300 kilometers an hour. Tornadus can travel at speeds of 200 miles per hour, 320 kilometers an hour, and it can also whip up frigid storms with its tail and is able to blow away houses. Again, freaking class 5 tornado. This also has the effect, though, of changing the seasons. Arcanine can run 6,200 miles in 24 hours, putting it at a 258 mile per hour pace. Frogadier can climb 2,000 feet in just 1 minute, putting it at a climb speed of 297 miles per hour. Our great big fiery bird Talonflame can fly at 310 miles per hour, making it real easy. We've reached the next section where we are at the speeds or above of planes or your average jet, being 575 miles per hour on average. What is that for kilometers for you people out there? 925.373 kilometers an hour. You can't comprehend these numbers anyway. We're just ordering these at this point, and I'm saying the math out there to prove that I did my job. Garchomp can fly at an incredible speed to catch its prey, being capable of flying as fast as a jet, cutting down trees with its blades of wind, a magnificent sight to witness, and I'm sure it's terrifying. It is able to move in both air and underground. Now, I do want to at least mention there is the animation out there where it shows Garchomp vastly outspeeding fighter jets, I assume, because they look like military jets, but it doesn't say military jets in its description. That might have been an over-dramaticism of it, and as such, we are just going with general jets, making it 575 miles per hour or a little bit faster. Latios will open its heart to a trainer with a compassionate spirit, and it can fly faster than a jet plane by folding its forelegs to minimize air resistance. Regular Latias doesn't state anything about its speed, but we could assume it's roughly the same but slower, since that is how their megas have been placed in terms of speed in relation to each other. And we'll get to those mega evolutions later. Those are a little bit more definitive. Flygon makes this difficult as it can fly faster, or at least almost faster, than the eye can follow. It also whips up gusts of wind. So, again, becomes very complicated. This all depends on distance from us to the Pokemon, the size of the Pokemon, and technically what direction it is moving for field of vision. Is it going across? Is it coming straight at us? Are we going to get run over by a Flygon? I don't know. To make this easy though, I do quote from visiondirect.co.uk as they speak about a soccer ball getting kicked towards the viewer. The average human field of view is about 200 degrees horizontally, which is pretty huge, but our binocular vision is about 120 degrees. This is the amount in front of you that both your right and your left eye can see. For this, we'll assume you're only really concentrating on that smaller area, staring right ahead. That means you would only be looking at roughly 70 meters of pitch at any one time. In order for the ball to be invisible, it would need to cross 70 meters in 1/250th of a second. That's 17,500 meters every second, or 38,146 miles per hour. At this point, the ball would be moving way faster than the speed of sound. This basically also means that since Flygon is much larger than a simple soccer ball, it would have to move even faster. But here's the kicker, no pun intended, Flygon moves almost faster than the eye can follow. This means that Flygon is likely, actually, just barely slower than the speed of sound, theoretically speaking. Though through this, Flygon speed also lets us know what Crocodile speed is, as they will work together in the desert to hunt for prey, as Crocodile can see through Flygon's sandstorms as it flies with it and produces said sandstorms, allowing them to catch prey unawares and then split it between them. We have hit the speed of sound, breaking the sound barrier at 761 miles per hour. And the first one is not one that I am willing or happy to say it's here, but it is anyway. Scyther, thanks to its green coloration, it can camouflage itself well in the grasslands and forests where it lives. Humans rarely encounter wild Scyther in these areas, however, it is said to be like a ninja, moving so quickly that it cannot be followed, increasing the effectiveness of its size. And if we look at other dex entries, it does kind of give that same idea whether it's with the camouflage or not. So if it is moving faster than we can see, it has to be at the speed of sound minimum. Ninjask. Ninjask is a very fast Pokemon that, again, is said to be able to evade any attack and was long believed to be invisible due to its high speed. Speed of sound again. Another Pokemon that doesn't have a specific measurement, but at least does say it's too fast or it moves too fast for the eye to follow, would simply be Electrike, as it uses the electric charge found in its fur, stimulating its leg muscles, and runs faster than the human eye can follow. Golurk. Golurk, the big boy that has such a low speed in the games, is actually really incredibly fast, because despite its large size, Golurk is capable of flying by retracting its hands into its arms and its legs and feet into its body, then taking off like a rocket at Mach speeds. Specifically in the anime, it states, flying faster than the speed of sound, Golurk loses control when the seal on its chest is removed, making it literally just Mach speed, not Mach 2, not Mach 3, no, Mach speeds, which is 767.2 miles per hour. Pidgeot's powerful wings can stir up windstorms in just a few flaps, and it may spread its wings to intimidate enemies. This Pokemon is capable of flying faster than the speed of sound. Its dex entries specifically state that it can fly at Mach 2, which is 1,534.54 miles per hour, or 2,469.6 kilometers an hour. To put that into perspective, in a matter of, 3.5 hours, it can cross the entirety of the Hisui region from side to side. Mega Latios and Mega Latias. Mega Latios is said to be one of the fastest Pokemon in the world to exist due to Mega evolving. Mega Latios can achieve even higher speed in flight. Mega Latios is both larger and faster than Mega Latias, and it can reach a speed of Mach 4. I laugh at this information, considering that it is nowhere near the fastest in the world, as we have plenty more Pokemon to talk about. Although, if it and Latias are traveling at Mach 4, Latios just being a little bit faster, this places them at 3,069 miles per hour, or 4,939 kilometers an hour. Despite its bulky build, Dragonite is capable of flying faster than the speed of sound, being able to circle the globe in 16 hours. Now, something's a little bit off here. Circumference of the Earth is 24,901 miles. Divide that by 16, and we get 1,556.3 miles per hour, or 2,504.6 kilometers an hour. So yeah, definitely a little bit faster than the speed of sound. Rotom, bet you weren't expecting them to be here, as in its base form, Rotom cannot be touched by anyone without the latter being shocked in the process. According to the Rotom catalog, Rotom in its base form is possessing a light bulb. Rotom lacks any sort of circulatory system or pulse, and is said to have the ability to enter and control appliances. Its body is made up of plasma, it is the plasma Pokemon, and plasma moves up to 40,000 kilometers an hour, or 24,854.85 miles per hour. We're not at lightning speeds yet, but we're gonna get there real soon. Rayquaza regularly breaks through Earth's atmosphere with no effort. This requires a minimum velocity of about 40,270 kilometers an hour, or 25,022.6 miles per hour. And that isn't even considering the fact that Mega Rayquaza is faster by a very wide margin. Then again, we don't have a definitive measurement, so that way we can actually do the math or understand just how fast it is. But we at least know the absolute minimum speed that Rayquaza is likely traveling constantly. Zorora was born from an explosion caused by a bolt of lightning striking a volcano. It lacks an electricity generating organ, so it gathers and stores electricity from outside sources. It can create a powerful magnetic field through strong electric currents emitted from its paw pads, and using these magnetic fields, it allows it to levitate and move at high speeds while airborne. It can travel as fast as a lightning strike. So, lightning travels at 270,000 miles per hour, or 434,522.88 kilometers an hour. Otherwise, far too fast for the eye to follow. Go look at this lightning strike. Mega Manectric has a speed that is explosive and equal to a lightning bolt. However, its body becomes filled with such an incredible amount of electricity that it is unable to fully control it, thereby irritating it. So here's a weird one, as Thunderous can move so fast it can materialize without warning. I would take that with a grain of salt, though that is primarily based on visuals within Legends Arceus, I believe, so could also, I don't know, said about the other genies maybe, and it might also be completely irrelevant, and Thunderous should be a lot lower than this. Just a kind of a toss-up and an honorable mention. Regieleki, for all of you who thought Regieleki would be a lot higher on this list, allow me to explain why it's not fastest in lore. Regieleki is slower than the speed of light as it is the Electron Pokemon, so we take Electron at face value. The Electron moves at a speed of 2,200 kilometers a second, naturally without being in a particle accelerator. This translates to 7,920,000 kilometers an hour, or 4,921,249.843 miles per hour. Number get too big to understand. What's important to understand, though, is that Regieleki is also being restrained by the semiconductors that are on its body, so it could actually be moving a lot faster, and I have no idea how the ancient humans managed to capture it and restrain it like this. We have finally hit the speed of light. 670,616,629 miles per hour, or roughly 1,080,000,000 kilometers an hour. I'm going to say this next one, and I don't want you to take it seriously, because Gary Oak wanted to say in the anime that a Diglett can pull its head underground faster than the speed of light. I find that hilarious, and I could not resist. We have another honorable mention, as Porygon can travel through cyberspace, and I mean, that gets complicated because technically it travels through light, as that is how information can be carried, and it does so freely. Raikou is said to represent the speed of lightning and control storm clouds at will. It can also fly, but Raikou races across grasslands while barking cries that sound like thunder. Raikou's cries can also send shockwaves in the air while shaking the ground at the same time. Pretty sure Raikou is breaking the sound barrier here constantly, so that feels a little bit more clean-cut to me. We have an Ultra Beast here, as Pheromosa live in another world named Ultra Desert. Pheromosa's speed is believed to be fast enough to dodge lightning. It displays a considerable reluctance towards touching anything, as if it interprets the Pokemon world as being unclean somehow. According to Wake, from the Aether Foundation, Pheromosa can reach speeds exceeding 120 miles per hour or 200 kilometers an hour in an instant. This speed is greater than any other living creature that has been discovered to date. Which, fine, sure, technically yes, but at the same time, absolutely not, because we still have technically faster Pokemon, but the fact that it could just easily dodge lightning says a lot. I mean, think about it. It has to be able to perceive the lightning and then react fast enough, which means it's easily moving faster than lightning. This one should feel like a no-brainer, as literally Ultra Necrozma is literally light itself. It is the blinding light. It is representative of light. So of course, it is going to move at the highest speed that light can move. And our last section here is infinite speed. Pokemon that go beyond what should be possible through special parameters, or just by being what they are. Now, technically, we have any Pokemon that can learn teleportation, because teleportation, the move, seems to only be limited by the power of the Pokemon. Otherwise, it is just measure any distance you want in 1 second that it takes to teleport, thereby theoretically being infinite and unmeasurable speed. One that is technically not natural and you could bump down if you really want to is Electrode, as it tends to live in power plants where fresh electricity is being generated, which it consumes. As a result, it often causes blackouts, and the more electric energy Electrode consumes, the faster it moves, when full of stored electricity, has been known to drift with the wind. So, theoretically speaking, if you can pump infinite amounts of electric energy into Electrode, that means that it could move in an infinite speed. And the last 4 are kinda no-brainers, I'm not gonna lie to you, as we have Celebi, who technically is infinite speed because it can time travel. We have Palkia, who can literally expand or contract space at will. Dialga, who can literally stop time. If you stop time and even move an inch, you have caused an infinite amount of speed over 0. Thus, making it an impossibility, breaks the universe, and I don't know what to say from there. And finally, of course, lore-wise, you would expect Arceus to be the fastest of them all, which is again a kind of no-brainer considering these are basically gods and then the Onion Fairy that can go through time. I mean, Arceus created Dialga and can stop time itself by all means, so what do you expect? But that's all of the Pokemon that actually state a speed. There are over 1,025 Pokemon soon enough that don't state their speeds, what any measurable feats that they've done, but it's still fun to have been able to at least order these and figure out all of them as I could. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you subscribe, share this with others, and even go watch other videos on my channel. If you want to support stuff like this, deep research, and the incredibly long videos that I have with other topics, please become a member for even as little as $3 a month if you would like to go the extra mile. Get videos early, get behind the scenes content, and get an exclusive role and chats within my community Discord. But with that then, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't do anything I want to do, doesn't go I do. Please be next to each other. I love you and I'll see you next time. Bye!